December 17, 2021 was a truly remarkable day to be a Spider-Man fan. It was the day Spider-Man No Way Home was released in theaters worldwide.
Oh boy, yeah.
The lead up to this movie was massive, and looking back on it now, just the hype alone for this movie is borderline nostalgic. It was safe to say that after a long time away from theaters due to the pandemic, and now the possibility of familiar faces returning to the big screen, Marvel fans were ready to witness greatness. And so, we did. The rumors were true. The GOATs were back.
Hello.
Willem Dafoe was phenomenal. Tom Holland was phenomenal. Expectations were exceeded, and Spider-Man fans worldwide were amazed. But that was back in 2021. Back in 2021, everybody and their mama was saying this was the
Greatest movie of all time.
But does that opinion still stand? Were we all just blinded by nostalgia, and was Spider-Man No Way Home even a good movie? Besides those absolute yams in the first couple of minutes of the movie, Spider-Man No Way Home still has a lot of good to offer for both Marvel fans and Spider-Man fans alike 3 years later. For starters, Jon Watts did a pretty damn good job in terms of cinematography for this movie in my books. The more notable scenes being Tom's Spider-Man in the rain after Aunt May's death. Although a very sad, deep, and emotional scene, it was very, very beautifully shot. He also does a pretty damn good job in terms of camera work in that one scene where Peter is using his Spider-Man sense in the apartment to figure out which one of the villains went rogue. That scene portrayed a sense of urgency and danger, which I don't think I've ever seen Peter's Spidey sense be used like that in any other live-action Spider-Man film. The humor in this movie did get me a couple of times. It has its moments where you just want to rip your ears off because you know the writers are trying too damn hard to be funny, but when it doesn't, there are some great laughs in this film. Specifically from Electro, Ned, and the Spider-Man trio dynamic. I mean, Jamie Foxx is practically working a night shift at the comedy club in this movie. Ned is just
Looking at porn.
and just seeing the Spider-Men interact with each other is always going to be funny.
That's good.
Now, this movie had some pretty damn good action. I'm specifically referring to Green Goblin piecing up Tom Holland's Spider-Man. My boy Norman Osborn said, "F your moral mission," proceeded to beat the shit out of Tom Holland's Spider-Man and killing his aunt in the process. And you know, my boy Tom Holland was gonna slide for Aunt May. He continued to beat the living dog out of Green Goblin in the Statue of Liberty. It was genuinely scary seeing a bloodlusted Tom Holland Spider-Man having to be stopped by Tobey Maguire himself from fully killing the Green Goblin. It was such a sight to see, and the action in this movie is nothing less than a spectacle. As for the villains of the movie, the only one worth being talked about in this section is Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. My god, did Willem Dafoe deliver such a good performance that it is on par or maybe even better in some people's eyes than his performance in the first Spider-Man movie. In the beginning of the movie, you see him running away from his goblin persona.
My goblin is nuts!
But as the movie progresses, you realize he's been Goblin all along. Straight killer, great villain, great writing, beautifully done, Willem Dafoe. Something else that still holds up 3 years later is the dynamic between Ned, Peter, and MJ. Ned and Peter are still best friends, and it's always wholesome to see them on screen. But Peter and MJ go through a beautiful and heartbreaking arc in this movie. To me, nothing will ever top Gwen and Peter's relationship from the Amazing Spider-Man films, but damn is MJ a real one in this movie.
I'm not going anywhere.
The writers really made us care about the relationship in this movie. In the past two Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, we don't really explore the relationship much. In this one, it's one of the center points, and it makes it all the more heart-wrenching when they share their final goodbye at the Statue of Liberty, and it made me tear up when Tom Holland's Spider-Man didn't give MJ the note whenever he went to go visit her at the coffee shop. Aunt May played a bigger role in this film than she has in the last two Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. In this movie, she served as a mentor to Peter, advising him against sending the villains back to their dimensions and dying because of it. It was very unfortunate to see her character die in this film, but as we know from Across the Spider-Verse, this was one of Peter's canon events. Without her death, Peter wouldn't become the man he's supposed to be, and we wouldn't have gotten the iconic line.
With great power, there must also come great responsibility.
And we can't forget about the two goats, Toby and Andrew. My god, was it fascinating seeing them on the big screen once again.
Is dick riding all you do?
The dynamic explored between the three Spider-Men in this movie was that of older brothers to Tom's Peter.
I love you guys.
We found out Toby's Spider-Man possibly married MJ, and we hear Andrew's Spider-Man hint at the dark path that he took after Gwen's death.
I got rageful.
It was so nice seeing them all swinging together and sharing a group hug at the end, and it was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience as a die-hard Spider-Man fan. And finally, after 3 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, we got classic Spider-Man.
This is something else.
For years, fans have been voicing their dislike towards Tom Holland's Spider-Man not being his own individual. In Homecoming, he's mentored by Tony Stark. In Far From Home, he's mourning Tony's death, and happy Hogan fills in those shoes for Tony. But in this film, John Watts makes it clear what his intentions were for this trilogy. Instead of telling Peter's origin story in the first film, let's span it out into 3 movies. It's a fantastic idea that had its highs and its lows, but seeing Peter go through so much in this movie and donning the classic suit in the end really made it worth it. I'm hearing different reports of what they might do with Tom's Spider-Man in the 4th movie, but I really hope I get to see that classic suit in street level action, teaming up with characters like Charlie Cox's Daredevil, who did cameo in this movie.
I'm a really good lawyer.
Or they can go the multiversal route, which is rumored to be happening. Although I love this movie, Spider-Man No Way Home pisses me off so much.
Scooby-Doo this shit!
For starters, the story in general was kind of a mess. It has a bunch of plot holes and left us with a lot of questions after watching the film. For example, you're seriously telling me that Doctor Strange, even if he's not Sorcerer Supreme in this movie, he is still one of the most powerful heroes in the MCU, and you're telling me he messed up his spell because Peter can't shut the fuck up? Better yet, Peter Parker, who is a literal genius, did not think of contacting MIT's admissions office? It's little things like that that make the movie less believable. Something as big as a reason Peter and Doctor Strange ripped a literal hole in the multiverse should not be summed up to oopsie, he messed up the spell because he couldn't concentrate. And what the hell was up with Ned all of a sudden being able to use magic? Bro's grandma told him he was special, and now all of a sudden he's opening fucking portals.
Find Peter Parker!
Oh, you digging in me, you digging in me.
I swear this part of the plot was purely added for the sake of this movie, and we'll probably never hear about it ever again. Another situation in the film that they try to explain but will never fully make sense to me is how the villains are alive. Even though I'm aware they were pulled from their universes right before they got murked by the respective Spider-Man, for me it's kind of lazy writing for something that should have been expanded on more. Same thing goes with what happened to them after they get cured and sent back. Do they die, or is it a case where they are now healed and get to lead a normal life again? Speaking of villains, every villain besides the Green Goblin pissed me off. I wanted to see Alfred Molina's badass Doc Ock so bad, but instead he's evil for a little bit, receives the back shots of Doom and gets cured by Peter, and goes on a hiatus until the final battle where he immediately gets his tentacle broken off by the Green Goblin. Electro was cool as hell. He had a cool redesign, and his main motive in the movie lines up with his motives in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was he wanted more power. What I don't get is since when did he become a jokester?
Y'all just gonna stand here and act like I ain't butt-ass naked?
Although I did say I liked his jokes in the film, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he didn't really crack jokes after becoming Electro. It feels more like Jamie Foxx cosplaying as Electro rather than an actual portrayal of the character. Or maybe that fresh-ass fade just made him a completely different person. I don't know. Don't even get me started on Sandman and Lizard, bro. Their actors weren't even in the damn movie. I get they lent their voices to their characters, but it's just not the same. The times we did see Thomas Hayden Church and Rhys Ifans was after their characters were cured, but it was just footage from their respective movies edited into this one. I would have really loved to see both of them back instead of their voices hidden behind CGI, but oh well. As if things couldn't get any worse, the CGI in this movie is cooked. They completely butchered Toby's mask. When Andrew walks through the portal for the first time, it looks super animated, and apparently Andrew has springs in his legs because when he catches MJ, he just bounces back up. It completely removes me from the moment and pisses me off because why does Toby's mask look like the Spiderman meme? Now last but certainly not least, this is something I don't really hear anybody talk about, but it's what pisses me off about this movie the most, it's the fact that it had been 7 years for Andrew Garfield and 14 freaking years for Tobey Maguire since they both suited up and played the role of Spider-Man. And instead of a grand entrance with a beautiful setting and an epic score where we see the two goats swinging around in ultimate fashion after years of not seeing them, we get both of them walking through portals opened by Ned in his grandma's dirty ass kitchen. And they acknowledge it in a way by cracking a joke about how Toby's dressed like a youth pastor.
You gonna go into battle dressed as a cool youth pastor, or?
As if that's supposed to make us feel better after being robbed of a proper return for both Andrew and Toby. It's something that ticks me off so much because it relates to the core problem of this movie. That being that it's rushed. A lot of the plot feels like it's out of convenience, the VFX is wonky, and there's so much that just doesn't make sense and is never addressed. It makes rewatching a movie that I have a lot of love for feel cheap. I understand this movie was filmed during the pandemic and Marvel has its own movie slate already planned out ahead of time, but man, is this movie full of so many what ifs. Oh, I don't know, what if Toby and Green Goblin fought given that they both have iconic history together? Things like that truly make me wonder what this movie would have looked like if they would have delayed it a year or two and really tried crafting the best Spider-Man film ever. I mean, they had all the pieces in place, they just didn't use them the right way. It served more as a theater experience than a story-driven film. That doesn't mean I don't love the movie, but you can't cover up a messy plot with cameos. Now, what do my cosmic powers tell me about this movie? It's greatness that should have been greater. 3 years later, Spider-Man No Way Home gets 6.5 Andrew Garfield caked up in 4K Ultra HD pics out of 10 from me. Yes, folks, that's how I rate stuff on this channel. That's all for me, folks. Take care, God bless, and stay cosmic.